everyone. Welcome to Call Me Crazy, the podcast where we interview amazing people like our guest today, Chris Dancy, who is known as the world's most connected person. I always thought the most connected person was Michael here, my co-host, but apparently it's Chris, and I'm so excited to meet you and have you guys chat about all things tech and connectedness. So Chris, welcome to Call Me Crazy.
Hi. As soon as I found your podcast, I literally can't get that song out of my head. But there's a song with that line, isn't it? In there, "Call Me Crazy."
Call me crazy.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it like an older one or is it a newer?
Yeah, I'm literally showing my age. It's like "Call Me Crazy."
I was thinking "Call Me Maybe," but
"Call Me Maybe."
Right,
no. That's...
All right, so Chris, tell everybody how you became the world's most connected man. Because if people haven't visited your website, which they should, because I love it. We were talking before the show. You are connected with everything. You have like 3 trackers on your wrist. There was a Showtime show about you, like tracking your life. How did you get into all this?
So Michael can track himself.
Yeah, because I track a lot too. I mean, you can see I have an Aura ring on, I have an Apple Watch. I track it all. It's fun.
I mean, there are worse things you can do than be interested in yourself.
Sure.
You know, God, like so many people, like, you know, the story, you know, how does anything really start? I mean, seriously, but 2007, I was maybe 300 pounds, smoking a lot, been on antidepressants from the time I was 18 to 2007. I turned 40 in 2008. So almost 22 years of antidepressants, 22 years of alcohol, drugs, in and out of rehab. Oh my God. But the really wild thing about this whole story was I was also super successful. It's like I had been really done well at work, but like there's this really dark side to business, at least the type of business. I was in technology, obviously. And if you're super successful at technology, they'll prop you up. It's like Weekend at Bernie's, right? They will literally just get you to do anything to keep performing, writing code, making sales, impressing people. And while it's good for you, I mean, there's a reason they put a battery percentage on devices because they treat people the same way. So it just became obvious to me that like I was not doing well, but everything around me was. And I just hit a hard stop and I just said, you know, I don't need a Corvette. I need like a better me. And it just dawned on me one day, what if I knew as much about my life as my internet browser history?
And back in 2007, not a lot of things to track your life. So what did you go about it? Was it just like an Excel sheet? Like, okay, today I walked this many steps. This is what I ate. How did it all start?
Yeah. So if you want to go way back, I actually started in 79. I was my first Excel, but it was Lotus 123 for IBM XT. And I just started logging all the cassettes I purchased. And through the 80s, I kept everything in a spreadsheet. By the 90s, I was keeping it in a PIM or personal information manager. By the 2000s, it was all going in Outlook Calendar, and email. But in 2008, to your point, it was really hard to do it back then. So I actually used something called Yahoo Pipes. And at that time, it was like if this, like IFTTT or if this and that. It was just like that, but for early web 2.0. And basically, if I put something on Friendster or I put something on my blog or I put something on Twitter or Facebook or MySpace, it saved a copy. Like I just typed, I didn't do an extra step. It just watched me. And then it saved it. And I just saved everything at that point to my Google Calendar because I figured it was the easiest to visualize how I was spending my time and search my life.
And did it, because like right now, you know, I'm not tracking my life, but there are a lot of things I track, the books I read, the highlights.
Notion. Yeah, I was just saying, this sounds like your Notion.
Yeah, so I do a lot of that in Notion, but do you ever get overwhelmed by all the things you need to track all the time? Because I think that's the hard part about it. Like the more you track, how do you collect and review the data? That's hard, right? Or is it just me? Maybe I'm not doing it right.
No. I mean, all you have to do is go to the Reddit for Notion and you'll see people who have, you know, these wonderfully designed lives, but they're attention poor. You know, that the problem comes down to this. Like, we don't know how to measure what we value. We don't know how to measure what we care about. So we care about what we measure. Right. Yeah. And you have this moment, you realize when you start tracking a lot of things, like, this is really interesting, but what is it doing for me? And you can spend a lot of time like dashboards and all the other things. But at the end of the day, you've got to make this really hard decision about what is important in my life. And I think early on, I always teach people, because a lot of times people reach out to me and say, hey, I just read your book, or I saw you on TV, or read an interview about you. I want to get started. And I go, it's real easy. Like, don't do what I did. your life has three components, right? Your behavior, your biology, and then the environment. That's it, right? So what is it that you value with your behavior? Is it seeing friends?
Mhm.
Is it reading books? What is it about your biology? Is it your sleep? Is it your activity level? And what is it about your environment? Is it sound, light, smells? Just figure out what you value and measure and track only that. Now, once you manage that, I would encourage you to track as much as possible, because life has this interesting way of not telling you what's needed until it's too late. And then it's nice to see it in the hindsight. But like I said at the beginning, there are worse things you can do than be a little interested in yourself.
What would be an example of tracking in the environment? Behavior makes sense to me, like what your goals, your tasks, but for the environment piece, I'm just trying to understand what that would look like.
Do you really want to take the red pill or the blue pill right now? Okay,
Let's
so
that's the basics. If we got to start with those three pillars, I want to know.
Right?
Yeah.
So, environment's a tricky one. We don't think about environment a whole lot. A lot of times when we think about environment, it's like, it's like an afterthought or something. But I'll just give you a classic story. In 2011, I was really having a hard time sleeping, and I was going to my doctor, trying to come off antidepressants. And I said to him, give me sleeping pills, and he was like, I'm not gonna give you sleeping pills. I'm like, look at my data, I'm not sleeping, right? Because I was a tracker even then, right? And I weaponized him. Screenshot. Oh yeah. Doctors, if you think they hated WebMD, they really hated Fitbit back in 2011. So he said to me, no, it's got to be something else. So I went home and did a little digging, and this is a case of one of those, you don't know when you'll need it. And I had a sensor in my room, actually a sensor a lot like this one. And it measures all sorts of things: ambient sound, ambient air quality, humidity, temperature, all the normal things you'd have. But it also measured ambient light. Oh. And what was happening is every night at 2:00 when I was waking up, I was waking up about 5 minutes after my neighbor was getting home, and she was pulling into her driveway, blasting music and lights every night coming home from her job. So when you say environment, I always think of that story, because that's something I would have never known. Another thing people don't think about, although we don't do it a whole lot anymore, restaurants. Restaurants that are noisy, you eat faster. Restaurants that are bright, you pick worse food. And restaurants that are crowded, you literally digest worse. So we don't think about the environments we're in, and they are toxic.
How did you figure that out? Were you at all these restaurants? You're like, the light's pretty bright today. What were your notes? Because that's so crazy that makes sense. Like, oh yeah, when it is bright, you're probably eating like at a Chipotle or some like fast food, because the lights are really bright, and you're eating at a dark restaurant. Like,
if you want to the ugly level, it's McDonald's, Subway, Chipotle, right? McDonald's being the worst for light, sound, noise, intensity. Subway a little bit less, Chipotle the best out of the three evils. So how did I figure it out? I was trying to lose weight, and when you weigh as much as I did and you don't exercise as much as I did, you have to make small changes. So it was just like, the first thing I figured out was the price of the food was a good indicator of how good it was for you. Like, again, McDonald's, Subway, Chipotle, those three things, that's the three price trios, right? But then one day I was at one of them, I think it was at the Subway near my house in Denver, and I literally had an app that I would check in, and it would also measure, it was called Reporter, and it would measure the sound and elevation and everything else. I noticed it was really loud. I'm like, I never noticed that before. I'm like, I wonder if I went back and looked at the sound in all these restaurants. Then I thought, oh my gosh, what if I go back and look at the ambient light in all these restaurants? And it started clicking. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't sleep as well those nights. Same reason I don't meditate at night, right? You just meditate, I sleep worse, all right? So there's a lot of things that just, we don't see the connections until long afterwards. You never know the person you're about to marry. I won't say that one, but
no, say it. Yeah, we're about to get married. Yeah, we want to know.
There's just a lot of things about how people treat their environments that are kind of early precursors of what you see in their personality. So tidy people versus neat people. People. Now, I'm not saying tidy, versus like untidy. I'm just saying.
Is it the same?
Well, no, tidy is a little bit kind of, you like to organize and straight, and neat, someone who might be a little on the edge of like, it's an anxiety issue.
Okay, I think that's
yeah, and that's okay.
I mean, we had different levels of like, I'm not not clean, but he's got another level, so maybe that's neat.
Yeah. And I just think, again, you can have a financial environment. So how you treat your checkbook, or you could have, environment's a big thing. I hate to make this sound like just a room, but the spaces we behave in, and and their feelings on us. I mean, there are certain credit cards people like to use over others. I mean, there's a lot of connections we just don't see in ourselves. I'm sorry if I'm going down a rabbit hole.
No.
Well, I'm going to go down a little deeper because I did see something about the color of your credit card might prompt you not.
Yes.
to
How
use
did you do?
I need to know that color.
Well, how'd you know that?
Because I saw it on his website.
Oh, I was like, where did you find that?
Yeah, that's an old artifact. Girl, sorry to call you girl.
Call it babe.
I'm getting all gay on your ass. No, it was one of these things where I started noticing I was always using this one credit card when I was over shopping, spending money I didn't have, and it was just tied to the color of the credit card. And I always tell people if you really want to like cut down your spending, first avoid all web spending, right? Yeah. But the second thing is like force yourself to use an Apple Watch when you spend, because it's so embarrassing and cringy to walk up and pretend like you're from Star Trek and you're swiping that you said like I'm not going to bother. So a lot of what the technical hacks I did were all about putting a space between me and instant gratification.
Yeah.
And what were the steps? Because all right, say I want to work out better. I need to track what I'm eating. I just downloaded my Fitness Pal. I'm trying to get in better shape. When did you review some of this data to actually put the pinpoints together? Because you lost a lot of weight. What was that factor where you're like, oh well,
and stop smoking?
Okay, all right.
Yeah. At the same time,
other habits maybe.
Well, the thing is, they're all connected.
Yeah.
So I mean, so you can't really lose weight until you change your diet, but you can't really. Once you change your diet and lose some weight, you really can't go to the next exercise level till you change what's in your diet, not like how you like calories is just one thing, macronutrients is a whole nother. And then before you can run, you really got to master, the endurance of walking. Yeah. And then you also have to like change it up with just walking and starting to run in different temperatures and at different times and understanding yourself. But I think the most important thing you can do, like when you're trying to master any of these fitness regimes, is just give yourself permission not to do it. So often, we beat ourselves up really bad when we don't do it, instead of just saying, okay, it was a day I had off. And my golden rule of thumb is you don't measure anything that you're just starting to measure. You don't look at that data for at least a month, and then only every month. A lot of times we look at data every day, and if you that works for staring at your wife or your girlfriend, you should do that every day, but not data. Like data will mess you up. Do you measure your sleep?
He measures it every. How did you know? That's the one thing I was going to just bring it up.
I measure it, but it has helped me identify how I can sleep better. So it's like cutting out alcohol a few hours before dinner, or not even having alcohol. My sleep is even better.
But it doesn't bother if you don't sleep well and you get up and look at the number?
What do you mean? Like sleep well and look at it?
Like if you have a poor night's sleep, does it bother you to see how poor it was?
I always try to guess my night's sleep before I look at the number. And usually it's over what it is. Like, oh, I feel really refreshed today. And it doesn't bother me as much, but it's like sometimes I do look and try to figure out why. So maybe it doesn't bother me, but it does make me question
or if it's like
what I did.
Just like, take it easy today. I'm like, how do you actually feel? You're fine.
Well, because like
it's my watch to take it easy.
The HRV and everything like that. I do look.
I mean, Aaron's got a point. I mean, you do have to like feel into it. But I would say, I mean, again, I don't know you that well, Michael, but I would say you're a little early in the process for all this. So you still haven't like started suffering like data PTSD where it's controlling you yet, but you'll get there. It's like there's a cyborg tunnel we all go through before you learn to like both do what Aaron says, which is feel yourself, but know your number. I mean, what's really cool is I now, if I'm in person, can look at someone and tell them their variable heart rate. I can tell them their pulse just by looking at them.
Because you've tracked your biology so long.
Oh yeah, I would. My phrase is, when you wear a sensor long enough, you become one.
Wow. For other people too.
I'm like one of those carnival people, the age, weight, biometrics.
That's so cool. Oh my God.
It is pretty cool.
Jealous.
Well, no, so that's my next question. This is like almost a dream, right? You get to track and do everything you want, and this is your business, right? How did this become a business? Like, you're making a living off of it, right? Like, there's a web, got it all. I feel like this becomes like more when you're getting paid for it a little bit. You got a book, you got all this, you're on Showtime. That to me is the ultimate dream where you're like, I get to do
what I was interested
in. What I was so interested in, and it changed my life. And now I'm here, hopefully maybe letting other people like access this data and figure out their life, right? Or is that too big of a question? Am I going too deep here right now?
I just don't think you want the answer.
I do want the answer.
I mean, yes. Do I make a living being the world's most connected man? Yeah. I mean, that'd be lying to say I didn't. I mean, obviously, you know, I don't have a real job, but I don't think anyone has a real job anymore. So let me just say that.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is I was fortunate enough to have some notoriety early enough that I didn't become a household name, but I also didn't become irrelevant. So you literally had to become kind of a D-list internet celebrity in about a span of 3 years so that you weren't considered an influencer, but weren't considered old school. So somewhere between Paris Hilton and, you know, Miley Cyrus or any of these contemporary people, you had to have a little bit of celebrity in there. Now, don't get me wrong. Some people today can do very well. They'll become YouTube sensations and that. But the challenge with that is they're kind of the new proletariat. So basically, they're kind of chained to their identities. They can't change. You see these YouTubers all the time saying, I can't do it anymore. You know, like I'm making millions of dollars and look at my house and I just can't keep up the schedule, you know? And I think it's hard right now. I think if we really want to talk honestly about like how fortunate I am really fortunate, not because I get to do what I want, because I did it at a time before it was chained to me for the rest of my life. I'm not chained to the identity of the world's most connected man. I can get a real job. But the reality is I probably can't, right? Because there also something else has happened, which a lot of people don't consider when they say, I want the life you have, which is you can become so popular, no one will hire you, right? So I just did a big event for Nokia just recently. I was at Bear in Switzerland recently. So I get to do really cool stuff with big companies, but I doubt any of them would hire me. And that's because in every big company, that big company's goal is to be known. They can't have employees more well-known than them. There are only so many Elon Musks, only so many Bill Gates, only so many Steve Jobs, people who eclipse the footprint of the organization. So yeah, I did it, but it was accidental. It happened at a really good time because I didn't get part of it. And, you know, what do you do with it now but move on? I mean, some of my most satisfying days are days I'm not getting paid, but talking to people I've never met before who call me up, young people, old people, people in the middle, and say, I don't know what to do. You seem to have your shit together. Can you help me? And I go, I don't have my shit together, but I'd love to talk to you. That's great. And it is so true because I think going through life and like I'm 34 now, I don't feel that old, but I can see how I know I am. I'm definitely getting there. It's coming, trust me. I know.
Tracked his biological age. What's your biological
age?
Well,
no, I haven't actually got it tested, but we don't know yet. But I'm just saying, I guess with all that, like I felt like I struggled with that thing a little bit when I was like going from, because I was on radio and then I moved over to like, oh, I want to do this film thing. And the identity was attached to this thing. Yeah. And I don't know if you've had that, Aaron, but that's what it feels like when you don't, like you're trying to become something else and you're attached so much to that thing. And that is hard. And I could only see like what these TikTokers are doing now. You know, you are now a TikToker. You're not going to be, you know, running. Again, we had a few Donny Osmonds and Michael Jacksons and they somehow made it through, but we have millions of young people going through childhood celebrity. And no one is talking about. I don't care that people think the technology is bad. I don't care that they think, you know, kids are addicted. I think it's all bull crap. What I do care about is the conversations we're not having about how to deal with your attention. How do you deal with vanity metrics? How do you deal in a world that only understands people with a following when there was only one Jesus? Like seriously, we call them followings. It's just toxic. And our inability to talk about the right things, but pathologize the wrong things. For a year, we've been locked down with kids being forced to use their technology, while a decade before that, we told them we were horrible people for using their phones at dinner. These two things can't exist in the same world. Yeah, it's.
But how do we juggle the need and the greatness of technology that allows us to do this and to be remote versus the attention issue where it's getting hard not to pick up the slot machine that is your phone? Like there's that, like both, you have to talk about both, and like there's no going back. You know, we're embracing technology, but I think a lot of people that are quick to like naysay it are worried about or at least I am worried about how addicted we are. Our attention spans are shrinking. I mean, look at TikTok.
You just said it, Aaron. You just said it. You just said it. You just literally said, you know, how do we talk about the need to be on it, but also like the slot machine nature. I mean, you said it, right? So I mean, again, 2 years ago, no one was saying that. 2 years ago, it was just the slot machine nature. Right. So, it kind of comes back to what we were talking about earlier with Michael when I said, don't look every day. Like, don't look at these trends every year either. Like, look at them over 5 years. We've come a long way. And I think if we could move forward in 5 years to 2026, no one would be talking about the addictive nature of technology. No one will be talking about people having poor attention spans. It'll be a much different conversation. And I think going ahead 10 years, I don't think anyone's staring at a phone anyway. I don't think we have phones at the end of the decade. I think they're on our wrist and they're in our ears, and we're going to miss the good old days of staring at our screens.
Wow. Oh my God.
That's
You're
the
probably
dream, right? Well, it's crazy because the technology has advanced so much, and eventually, we're not going to have these issues where it's just here, but the technology does give us all this too. We're talking to so many people through this podcast, and it's, you're right here in front of us. We got you on a large screen, and it makes us feel like we're, connected to somebody, even though we can't. LA was on lockdown for forever, it feels like, and this became kind of our outlet to talk to a lot of people. We work at home, so there's advantages, but yeah, there's also that point where you become a TikToker, not able to get out of it. But it's so wild. Where do you see a lot of the technology going? Like, I know you mentioned like the cell phones and everything like that. Where do you see it 10 years from now? Where are we? Are you implanting the Neuralink into you if you're able to get it? Are you doing anything like that?
I get asked a lot about implants. To me, implants I think are just a bridge too far for me. I've always enjoyed the fact that while I'm hyper connected and hyper attuned to everything around me, that I literally can turn it off. I'm probably more Aaron than Michael, but most people like to fetishize me as Michael, not Aaron. But every good Aaron needs a good Michael, right? So that's just, it's about, right? Like the way I did that. So it's really about integration, and I think again, Michael, if we go out 10 years, again, I mean, the people looking at screens will be the new poor, right? And the people who, can have the upward, the heads up displays and the earpieces. I mean, you guys have seen Her, the movie, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Her is about, so it's so real. I don't know why it wasn't a bigger hit.
I don't know.
Just like walking.
Did that come out? How long ago? Maybe
a while ago.
Maybe it was too early. Because now that's
7 years, way too early.
There's a company now that you can get your best friend or your girlfriend digitally.
You can?
Yeah.
Or are you talking about the movie?
No. Now there's a real startup, but I don't know the name of it. You can
heck, there's a startup selling you young people blood that'll transfuse you.
Yeah.
But my spouse is a school teacher, and kids just permanently have an earbud in their ear. And again, I always think, again, why do we talk to people who put chips in their hands like they're freaks, but we don't question children who have got literally technology in their head?
Yeah.
Our pathology for judging one person but not another is just record breathtaking at this rate, right? I think these are really important questions we need to ask ourselves. And I think there are ways you can have relationships with people who are symbiotic. I mean, most people under 15 years old are pretty much symbiotic.
It's wild too, because the people with the headphones in
all the time,
they talk to you, they have conversations with you,
and
while
they're talking to someone else.
Can you hear me? Oh, there's somebody else there, or you got music on. It kind of blows me out, like, oh, this is wild. You can still have a conversation.
I knew we were in another land when I started seeing people in 2016 who would be on FaceTime while they were walking, but not looking at FaceTime. So they were, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So they were extending their body like through the device, and even that person had their partial attention. It's literally designed to have a camera and a screen to look at, and even that person had partial attention. And now strangers were picking up your conversation so that it could be repeated back to you. Yeah. I mean, how far we've advanced from a single person to this kind of group being is just mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. Tune in and on Clubhouse every second, everyone's live, and it's just like, you're in the room, get on stage. It's like, well, no, let me just be by myself.
Isn't Clubhouse amazing that way though?
Yeah, it's cool.
I'm not a fan.
I
really
don't know. The amount I've used it versus the amount of notifications I've gotten is too spaced out right now, so I'm trying to
Do you
understand how many users.
Unfollow a lot of people. I don't get that many notifications, but I do a Clubhouse thing on Mondays at 11 Eastern time where we talk about techno-paganism. So basically, I run an hour-long show where we talk about the occult and technology and the history of the technology and the occult and using technology for occult purposes. And
that's wild.
Here's your intro to Clubhouse, Michael.
Well, all right, let me ask you about Clubhouse, because the issue that I have with it is it's not like, I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. I wish I could download that, the Clubhouse that you're doing into a podcast form so I could get it later. Because what if I can't make it? Because that would be 8 o'clock in the morning here. I could probably make it, but that's the tough part. And I get it. It's kind of like almost going old school a little bit with the, hey, tune in now and you can kind of catch it live. Elon was on there. Everybody was doing it. I guess it's like the novelty of it's fun. Like, I went in a few rooms, hung out. Do you see it continuing forward? Like, do you like it that much, or is it?
It's going to be huge. I think it's going to be huge. And I think it's going to be huge for one reason and one reason only. It restores narrative time. Every other piece of technology we have allows you to time shift from Netflix to podcast, from Facebook to Twitter. Everything allows you to consume friends and content on a DVR. People are hungry for synchronous communications.
And you always talk about how we've lost the TV, where we all watched MTV and TRL, and we all tuned in Monday night, and we had this energy of community. And when we were younger, we lost it. Yeah,
synchronous.
It felt like culture, and I think that's what we've gone away from the last few years, where we're not all on the same. Like, not that it was good to be all on the same page, but I did like that
like
we
when
could.
Someone wins the Super Bowl, everyone's on the same page. Like,
we all tuned in.
Yeah,
we used to call that sharing.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Before sharing became asynchronous.
Yeah.
So again, love is synchronous. Distraction is asynchronous. Right. So how we experience time is directly tied to how we use our technology. The reason self-trackers become so interested in themselves and interested in the field of it is because it allows them to shift their whole lives through time. I mean, your Oura Ring is nothing more than a time machine for you, right? Yeah. And what we'll start to see as we move forward and more of these systems like Clubhouse, and there's this film thing everybody's going crazy about now called Dispo, which you take pictures and 24 hours they come back to you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so wait a minute. Everyone's like excited about all these things that act like they did 15 years ago. Yes, because delaying gratification and doing things together felt more normal. I was never worried that we weren't going back, ever.
That's wild, because I always felt like the convenience factor was better.
But we hate people like that. We hate people addicted to convenience. We call them narcissists. We call them Karens. Literally, I mean, look at what convenience has killed the world.
Yeah.
Sorry to be so brutal.
No, I love this.
It's so true.
Do you find that it's almost like it's almost in the last few years, like all these shows, I don't know, there's 2 Netflix shows about all the technology and what was that one called with the
social dilemma?
The social dilemma. Are we almost reverting back slowly? Are we going back slowly to be more? We're almost like people want to pull away from technology, but want to use it more. And I see, I know we've been talking about it.
Well, because what becomes novel now is what technology was novel.
Like right now,
now
all fashion is kind of like based in the 90s, and it feels like we're slowly reverting back to all these like 90s type things.
We're just old because fashion repeats itself. I'm like, oh my God, I wore this in high school. I can't wear this now. It's too bad. I'm definitely old.
It's just wild to think about, because technology keeps advancing, but we keep slowly pushing. There's those like Palm phones that have like limited editions.
Let's roll back to the social dilemma just for a moment.
All right, let's roll back there.
Let's do it. So first off, this idea that we're going to take a bunch of ex-Silicon Valley people who now have some mea culpa about like, I was guilty, I should have never done this, and then make them celebrities for creating this toxic shit, right? And then now we're going to give them more attention, and we're going to trust them to create new solutions for the old shit, right? Yeah. This is like putting tobacco farmers in charge of oncology clinics, right? This is the worst possible thing we can do. But yet we have this BDSM relationship with beating ourselves up about technology and then feeling kind of good about it. It's this kink we all have. Like, yeah, it's a slot machine. I'm such a dirty little cyborg. And it's just all so toxic. And like, I'm just like, if we could just come to terms with how ugly we'd love to feel, we wouldn't feel so ugly.
It's wild because I never thought about it that way.
Of course not.
Like, oh yeah, so
yeah, but we watched that.
Come to Papa.
Yeah, we watched that movie and I was like, I never thought of that. Like these guys were in it, and now they're just trying to promote maybe something else they're gonna build that will get your attention.
Yeah, we're like, oh, there's such a good guy coming out and like,
and they all did.
The truth.
They all did. I mean, Tristan Harris has been on Bill Maher. I mean, he's been everywhere. But listen, he got bankrolled by Ariana Huffington, right? Who then spun out of, her like HuffPo, and like now she's found this thing called Thrive, and then she's writing books on sleep. Well, yeah, if I sold my company for $1 billion, I could probably write a book on sleep too, Betty. But that's not the way the world works. And you can't pull some Google ethicist out of Google, make him a celebrity, so you now can add it to your wellness program to a bunch of people who aren't getting sleep because they're remote working full time because their kids aren't going to school because we're eating, cross species jumping disease, bats. I mean, wake up and smell the dystopia.
Oh my God.
You're so right. And it's like I'm waking up right now. I've literally never thought about it like that. Ever. Like after watching that and just thinking like, oh wow.
That's my rant on that.
No, I love it. I love it. That's great.
But beyond that, I think we're going to be fine. I guess we've got to just kind of take a step back, calm down. Like join Clubhouse, like whatever it takes. Just stop being mean to each other about technology. If your spouse wants to use their phone all the time, ask them what they're doing. Ask them if you can watch with them. If your kids are doing it, try to find ways to incorporate yourself. I mean, literally do what we did in the 90s. Think. Spend a minute and think.
And that's something I've tried to do this year too. That was like one of my main things is slow down and just think about stuff, because I think right now we all are just actionably doing things all the time. It's do this, do that, do this, play that on your whatever it is. And just taking a minute to think, you don't realize how powerful that is. Just taking take 2 minutes, literally take 2 minutes to think of something, and things will just, oh yeah, I could probably just do it that way. It'll make it much easier instead of just doing.
One of my most favorite tricks, if you should try this once the pandemic is over. But one of my favorite things to do if I can't get help in a store. Like, have you ever been to a store and just busy, nobody helps you, but you need someone, right? You know that feeling? And like, no matter where you go, suddenly that person's busy or they're with someone and the person they're with is taking forever. I got a perfect way. And this fixes so many problems and it'll blow your mind. Go to wherever you need help. And instead of looking for someone, stand perfectly still like you're in a movie and you've been frozen in time. 5 people will ask you if you need something. There is something happening where people who pause get the attention.
Stillness.
I like that one. I'm gonna try it next time we go. Maybe we
seriously
next time we'll just freeze.
Because
it's true. It's almost
don't do it on a podcast. People were like, "What happened?"
No, not on a podcast.
But or when you pause and you're talking, you pause. I feel like other people feel like they have to fill the space. So maybe when you're silent in the store, they're like, "Okay, what's going on here?"
Well, every time you don't want them to, they're always around.
Yeah.
And then
Okay, Chris, we're gonna ask you our $1 million question. I'm excited about this. We need to hear your Call Me Crazy story. This is the Call Me Crazy podcast. So tell us about a time when you were called crazy by your friends and family.
Not called crazy. I think it's just if you did anything crazy.
Yeah, or like something looking back, they're like, oh dang, that was wild. Good or bad.
God. Pick a decade.
Let's do
starting in the 70s. Starting in the 70s.
Oh wow. Could we do
one small story from each decade?
70s. My mother pretended to be someone else and became friends with Mamie Eisenhower, and I spent the summers at the Eisenhower farm pretending to be some kid from someplace else because my mom would love celebrity friends. Wow. 80s, my mom wrote a letter to Michael Jackson, made up some story about me being sick or dying, and we got to be friends with Michael Jackson.
Shut up.
90s, oh please,
your mom sounds great.
I'm the right person for this podcast. Gosh, the 90s. Oh my gosh, there's so many things in the 90s because then I was in my 20s. Gosh, there's so many that I can't even talk about.
I mean, the first two were great.
Yeah, we'll just leave those. I mean, I've
Yeah.
done a lot of crazy stuff.
How did your mom like? Would you go to the Wonderland or whatever the house is called? Like,
No,
is
before Neverland was Havenhurst,
Neverland.
and that was the one in Encino. No, I mean, so my mom, she passed in 2003, and she was a really interesting person. She, if you ever watch the TED Talk, I've only done one TED Talk, but if you ever watch the TED Talk that I did, she saved and documented my whole life. Like, and I didn't know about this until I turned 30, and she sent me boxes of literally, she kept papered boxes, dialog. You did this today, you did that today, you called me today from this place. She was just this wonderful record keeper. But she lost both her parents before she was 6 or 7. So she grew up in this kind of world where she had no real connection to anything. So she made sure, even though she always worked a lot, I hardly ever saw her, that our whole lives were full of this just otherworldly magic. Even when we couldn't afford things, she found ways to do these things and to always make sure our lives were just remarkable as children, because my father had a hard time keeping a job and things. I'll never forget in the beginning of 1983, right after we'd reached out to Michael Jackson and that whole thing started, we finally got to go to Disney World, and we walked in and she was sobbing. She was holding my hands as we're walking up Main Street, and I'd never seen my mom cry. And I was like, Mom, what's wrong? And she said, I can finally stop worrying about you. And sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. And when you meet people and you have people in your life who will literally bend space and time, who will bend reality to make your life just one bit better, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about how to treat yourself and others. And I lost her in 2003, but man, guys, there isn't a day that doesn't go by that I don't realize how blessed I am for having been loved so remarkably.
That's great.
That's so sweet.
Your mom really cared about you, just taking you all these things, and she taught you well.
She was
right?
crazy. She literally was crazy. She was crazy, right? But she was crazy in a way that she knew that our lives were hard, and she wanted us to kind of, I don't know, have this otherworldly experience. Now, do I endorse some of her methods? No. I mean, she was unethical AF, right?
Yeah.
But I kind of understand from where she was coming from. She was doing the best she could, and I don't know. I think there's kind of something kind of quaint about that old world, the old school narcissism.
Yeah, just making magic for you, however.
Right?
Do.
That's so
cool. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the pod. Everybody can go to your website, chrisdancy.com.
Yes.
Everything's there. If you ever want to know anything about you, right? It's all there. All like
literally is all there. Even the data.
Blogs,
I always tell people, you don't even have to go to my website. You just Google most connected. And in any country in the world, just those 2 words and I'll come right up. But thank you so much. I mean, I was really excited when I got it in. I was like, okay, let's go do this. Like, this sounds exciting. And I love the work you guys are doing, and I love the intimacy you share, and I just love how you make every guest feel so special. So thank you so much for me.
Thanks, Chris. I loved our conversation. I'm super inspired.
Thanks for coming on.
Cool. All right.
Thanks.